are run by the mafia. Is this man safe? Whaps out a razor. Honestly, I'm holding this knife shaking, thinking, oh my god, where's he gonna pull us up to? Hi guys, and welcome back to our channel. Thanks for clicking on the video. So, I bet the first thing you're wondering is, where is Gaz? Well, this is a bit of a different video today. So obviously, as you know, we're all in lockdown. There's not that many adventures to be had when you can't really go too far from your house. And I thought, I've got loads of weird, funny, scary stories from back when I've done lots of travelling, and I thought I'd share them with you guys. Hopefully they'd be entertaining and maybe have some morals so that people don't make the same mistakes as me. So that's kind of the gist of this video. We don't have Gaz today because he's not part of this story time, but I will try and bring him in on other ones if you do enjoy this style of video. So probably best to set the scene first to kind of know about my travelling past. The first travel trip I did was when I was 18. It's the typical gap year. And I did an around the world trip with my 3 other best friends, and we did China, Hong Kong, Laos, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand and Australia. So the absolute standard gap year thing that everyone does, and it was amazing. That's kind of where I got the travel bug from. I love traveling, it's one of my biggest passions. So yeah, I did that for 4 months when I was 18, and then I went and did a ski season and worked and lived in Courchevel for 6 months after that. Then I went and did university, so I went to university for a year, and then in between my first and second year in the summer, I then went and worked in America and did AmeriCamp, and then travelled around the east coast of America, over to Vegas, and then down the west coast as well. In my second summer of university, I then went and travelled around the Philippines for a month with my 3 best friends from university. Not even joking, the Philippines is stunning. People are amazing, the beaches are insane, and it's just got so much about it, so I really hope to go back there again one day. And then finally, I finished university, and then straight after university I then did a huge 1-year travel trip where I travelled to Indonesia and Bali and lived in Australia for about 10 months, and then afterwards I travelled back to Thailand and Vietnam on the way home, and that's actually where I met Gaz. So if you guys do want to hear about the story of how we met when we were travelling, then please let us know. So anyway, that's the background of like my travelling stories. You know, it's not the first time that I've ever been travelling, so anything I say today I hope comes from what you'd kind of class as a more experienced traveller, and it's something I 100% want to go and do again in the future. So that's the background. This story time is going to be about a time in Indonesia where me and my friends thought we were getting kidnapped by the mafia. And I'm not even joking when I say we genuinely thought we were being kidnapped by the mafia. It was terrifying. And I think there's a few other scary moments in my life, but I think in that time I've never felt so threatened. As I said, I went to Indonesia straight after university and did a month of travelling there before I went to Australia. So me and 2 friends from home, we went on our travel trip. They both hadn't ever travelled before, so like I was kind of the leader in this situation, kind of planned the whole trip. If anything was going wrong, or I don't know, you know, they kind of looked to me to kind of lead the trip because they'd never done any backpacking, especially not in Southeast Asia. I remember my friend Lauren, when we got on our long haul flight, and she'd never been on a long haul flight before, she was literally like fist pumping, and the air hostess like walked up the aisle and was like buzzing at her because she was buzzing about this long haul flight. We'd done 3 weeks travelling through Indonesia, like the main area of the island, and that was really cool. It was like a lot more chilled, there wasn't that many tourists, and when this story happened we were travelling from the main island of Indonesia over to Bali. So we were really excited to go to Bali and do a little bit more partying as well. So we got this overnight bus, like you usually do in travelling, that's like a very, very normal thing. It was arriving in Kuta. I think we were supposed to arrive at 5 AM. When we booked the bus tickets, they told us that the bus was going to arrive on Kuta Strip, so we'd be able to just walk to our hotel like in the middle of the night and go and check in and go to sleep basically. So no worries at all. When we were on the bus, it was like 3 AM and suddenly it stopped. Well, that's not normal in Southeast Asia. Like usually you have no idea what's going on. Sometimes your bus stops for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and you just kind of sit there and roll with it. So we weren't too worried at this point. Anyway, some guy then comes on and says, "Bus is terminated, get off please." So we're looking around like, well, this doesn't look like it's a strip in Kuta, it looks like bus station. So we were like, okay, this is really weird, but again, not unusual for travelling. Obviously the only threat here was that it was the middle of the night, so we were a bit like, oh, we were knackered because we've been travelling through the night, hadn't got much sleep. And we're just a bit confused and disorientated. Got off the bus and we're waiting for our big rucksacks to come from out underneath. What usually happens when you get off a coach when you're travelling is you get loads of taxi drivers that come over and they're like, taxi, taxi, taxi. That happened to us, and we were just trying to like get our bearings, see what's happening. You know, we were going to go and speak to other travellers and be like, what are you doing? This isn't normal, blah, blah, like we weren't supposed to be dropped here. As this was happening, we look around us, and I'm not even joking, no travellers were left. So no backpackers, like not even any of the locals from the coach. Like I swear they just disappeared into thin air, but there was no one else left around us. And at this point when I'm trying to like take in the surroundings, be like, what's happening? It's 3 a.m, there's no one here. And then also loads of people stood in front of me going, taxi, 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 taxi. And I'm like, right, okay, this is tiring, but it's fine. Took a deep breath and I'm like, right, okay. At this point, what was going through my head is, you read online that the taxi like services in Bali are run by the mafia. So I'm just thinking, you know, they're run by the mafia, but they can't be that dangerous. People use them all the time. I had read online some horror stories, etc, etc. So I was kind of like being with it in the situation. I was thinking, there's like a level of risk here in the middle of the night, but I wasn't too worried yet. No one really was. As all these taxi drivers were like surrounding us saying taxi, some man comes out of nowhere, looks really intimidating, and he kind of steps forward and he's like, taxi ladies, and tries to grab our bags off us. And at this point, as soon as he steps forward, this whole crowd of like taxi drivers go silent and just walk away and sit down. Like we're noticing that atmosphere change. We're noticing that he clearly is like what I thought was more important than the rest. Like normally it's just like every man for themselves in those situations with the taxi drivers, and you just pick one and you go. So when this man came over, he's trying to grab our bags off us and be like, get in a taxi, being quite forceful, and he came across really intimidating, that's when the mood really shifted. So I was like, okay, I really don't know what's going on here, but like I'm not going with this man until I know it's safe. The girls were starting to freak out a little bit, so they kind of look at me like, what do we do? So I look around and I see in the distance, because obviously it's a bus station, there was a desk and there was someone behind us. I was like, great. Like in Bali, they're used to tourists, they're used to speaking English, like this person's gonna help us if this man's safe, even if he's gonna rip us off with money, don't care, like just make sure he's safe. So I was like, come on girls. So this taxi driver, they're like the one who's in charge, keeps following us, trying to grab our bags to just put them in his car. And I'm like, come with us. Like, so we went to the desk and we asked the person behind the desk, is this the best way to go? Is there any other options that we can have to try and get there? And the person behind the desk just blank, looks down, says nothing. Doesn't even try to understand what we're saying, whether they spoke English or not. And the taxi driver, who seems to be in charge, has just stood there, like waiting for us to ask this person. I feel like he was giving in the eyes, like, don't you dare say anything. So we keep asking, and then we just say, like, is this man safe? Like, if he's safe, we're fine. Like, please just tell us if we get in his car, we're safe. Nothing, it's just like this. So then I started to really freak out. The man is still trying to grab the bags off my friend's back. Lauren, my friend, was really freaking out at this point and was starting to shout at him saying, get off my bags, leave me alone. And it was starting to get, you could feel like the tensions were rising. We were starting to freak out a little bit. We were like, okay, don't know what's happening. Our only option at this point now was to get in this man's taxi. We couldn't order a grab because the grabs won't come to where the taxi drivers are, because basically the taxi drivers will beat up the grabs because they're owned by the mafia. So you can't order a grab. There was no way of walking because it's too far away. We didn't know where we were. It's the middle of the night and we're in a pedestrian area. So what can we do? We literally can't do anything except from sit uncomfortably. It might even be more dangerous to stay there. So at this point I was like, well, we're just gonna have to get in the car, girls. Like, you know, and you just get swept away. So I let him sweep us into his car. So it's me and my friend in the back two seats. It's my friend Lauren in the front. I don't know how she ended up in the front because she was freaking out massively by this point, and he starts driving. Lauren's now crying in the front. I've got my hand over the front like this, holding her hand, trying to calm her down. The taxi driver is chain smoking, listening to Pulp Fiction, just to set the scene. He's chain smoking, again, not unusual when traveling. The Pulp Fiction soundtrack, it was so creepy, honestly. And because both my friends are freaking out, I was freaking out because I was like, oh my God, I feel like I'm in charge here, like I'm freaking out. Lauren's crying, Maddie's silent because that's how she deals with like situations like that. Starting to freak out, and then my adrenaline was making it so bad, so I was genuinely like shaking like this. Like I genuinely could not stop myself from shaking. And to top it off, right, so all of this is happening, I'm thinking, oh my God, he could literally take us anywhere at this point into a group of anyone and we could be mugged, we could be anything. Like I just, the feeling of him and the fact that we were all crying and he just didn't even try to like make us feel safe, it was just bizarre. And I was thinking was like, what do we do if we are driven into a situation we can't get out of? Like, what what if he's not going to take us to Kuta Strip? Like, what do we do? We need a backup plan. We need to think of like what we're going to do. So I was thinking this all through in my head while shaking like this, trying to calm my nerves down. Lauren's crying in the front. Then the guy whaps out a razor and starts dry shaving his face with a fag, Pulp Fiction bloody soundtrack on, steering wheel, driving. So he's got this razor. I'm thinking he's going to turn around and slash us. Like, everything was going through my head. I was like, and then thankfully my friend Lauren, she had taken a penknife when she was travelling. I don't think it was for protection. Hang on. I think it just obviously has all these handy things on. But she did tell us that if we ever needed it, it was always in the front, like, zippy bit of her rucksack. I also had a rape alarm. Again, I don't think that would have been very useful in this situation because there was no one around. So I was like, right, I've got a rape alarm. I've got a penknife. How do I get this penknife out casually in case we get driven into a situation where I don't have time to get out? So I reach behind in the car and I just pretend that I'm trying to find someone else, and I pull the penknife out really casually like this, and I don't think he notices. And then in my bum bag, I open it out and I have the knife in between my fingers like this. Honestly, I'm holding this knife shaking, thinking, oh my God, where's he gonna pull us up to? So at this point, we're all freaking out. Maddie sees what I did, but like, we're just keeping it calm. We're like preparing ourselves for the worst, expecting the best. Anyway, the ending of this is so anticlimactic, but actually, I mean, it's climactic because it's good that nothing happened. But he did just pull up on to Kuta Strip, charged us triple the amount of money he should have, which, you know, is fine. I'd rather that. But I'm not even joking. You know, when you genuinely feel like this is a bad situation. So as we get out the car and he's like letting us out, I've got this blooming penknife in my bum bag, so I'm trying to like put it away casually because I don't want to like come across as like, well, no, it was his fault. He shouldn't have forced us into that situation, and he should have made the effort to make us feel safe. And I don't know. Anyway, thankfully it ended fine. We like got our bags so quickly out of the car, we just threw money at him and we ran into our hotel. And then obviously because we arrived at like 5 a.m, we were still like so buzzed off this adrenaline. We were like shaking. We hadn't had a chance to speak in the car. So like we were like, right, we need to debrief. So we went and debriefed in the McDonald's down the road in the middle of the night. And what was quite funny was like everyone was thinking the same as me. What we were all doing in that situation was we were all planning on how we would protect ourselves if we were in danger. So obviously I went and got the penknife. Lauren said she was thinking about how she could strangle him with her seatbelt. I don't know how she would have done that. And Maddie was thinking about how she would get the razor off him and attack him with that. So we all had a plan in our head. Whether that would have worked out, who knows. It was a very scary situation. I don't know whether to people listening that they would just think we were being dramatic, but I think if you knew who kind of person I am, especially with travelling, is like, I don't get scared that often. So for me to feel this kind of fear, that felt very real to me because I'd never felt like that travelling before. That was scary. It turns out the Mafia do own the taxis in Bali, and we did speak to a few taxi drivers, well, Grab drivers, when we were in Bali. And they did say like if they pull up and there's a taxi there, then they will drive away rather than pick the people up because they've been beaten up a few times by the taxi drivers. So it definitely is like a dodgy setup over there. I think if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, I want to go to Bali, or like, oh, I'm travelling by myself, that's terrifying. All I would think is this doesn't happen often. It was actually a safe situation. And if I'd been alone in that situation, I wouldn't have got off the bus alone and been dazed. I would have straight away gone with other travellers, been like, hi, do you mind if we get a taxi together? Do you mind if we do something together? So, you know, safety in numbers. If you are travelling alone, even if you go with a local or something like that, people are always willing to help you. That's kind of the advice I'd give to people. I'd also say maybe it is a good thing to have like pepper spray or something on you so you feel safer, because that having that penknife just made me feel safer. Whether I would have ever used it, I mean, I'm not an aggressive person, so I doubt it, but it just made me feel like I had something for myself. A weird situation, and I hope that was kind of entertaining in some way for you guys. I have got some other stories that I'd like to share. I've also got lots of stories with living in Australia and like where to get your like accommodation, and we live with these two crazy old people for 3 months, and I've got some hilarious stories to share from that. So if you enjoy this kind of video, then let me know, and I'll kind of delve deeper a little bit into my travelling experiences and hopefully give you guys a giggle. I hope that wasn't too long rambly, and I hope I kind of articulated the story well enough. But if you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and hit the subscribe button, and I'll see you next week for next week's adventure. Thanks for watching. Bye!